Thank you very much. We don't have any fire drill planned, but we have a judgment of the Supreme Court coming up, so please don't give me any spoiler, as this session is the best cliffhanger I've had in my career so far. So my name is Giuseppe Sollazzo. I head the Developing Data Unit at DFT, and this session is about our work to research and define the data strategy. So what you'll see in the next hour or so is going to be a short overview of the findings so far from me. Then I'll hand it over to Nikolai Petrou from PA Consulting, who was our contractor in this piece of work, and he will lead an interactive session during which you'll be able to give your views on our work so far. To give you a bit of context, 1 year ago my team didn't exist. The executive committee decided to set up a central data function at DFT in order to invest in data capability. Our first hire started in October last year. We weren't fully staffed until May, but we did do some pieces of seminal work so far. So we have worked in February alongside the BSI on a transport data standard scoping study, and you will hear about that in the next session from Matt, if he joins us. Then between June and September, we worked on this piece of research on data strategy. And more recently, we have partnered up with colleagues in the Traffic and Technology Unit to procure a transport metadata catalog for roads. And we will be informing you about that at one of the later sessions. Now, the background to our work is one of wide interest in all transport data initiatives. National media have covered the launch of Street Manager. They have been showing interest in digitization of traffic regulation orders. So there's definitely interest in everything having to do with better journey planning, better information to passengers, and in order to make better journeys. There is also ongoing interest in our statistical collection. We published 28 statistical collections. They have been used many times by the press, sometimes a bit creatively maybe, to write stories about traffic. There was, as you probably remember, a recent innovation competition we launched for local authorities, which was absolutely oversubscribed with very high quality bids. So we ended up stretching that funding to expand the opportunity. However, back last year, actually back at the beginning of the year, we also did some work with colleagues at the Transport Systems Catapult and the ODI that highlighted that there are barriers to an effective use of data in the transport sector. You see some examples in this slide. There are legal and contractual barriers often mentioned, not just in terms of compliance. GDPR is a pervasive worry, but also in terms of contractual issues. For example, the long tie-in contracts, which were quite common in the local authority sector, making very difficult to extract data when that had not been agreed at the outset. There are barriers related to lack of skills, or perceived lack of skills. Sometimes, the hype around data science is making it difficult to use data effectively. There is a certain fear of missing out, but also the lack of knowledge around standards, and data standards especially. There are certainly cultural barriers. We all know that change is difficult, but sometimes change is also impeded by two issues. One is the so-called too difficult box, where we park good but difficult ideas in many of our organizations, and the other is the not invented here syndrome, which makes it difficult to apply solutions that come from outside our organization's boundaries. We have also been reported about competitive issues. So often there is a perceived problem with the potential for data to affect or to impact business models. This sometimes is due to inflated value attributed to data. So with all these issues in mind, we partnered up with PA and ODI leads on a 6 weeks discovery, during which we engaged with a cross-section of the transport data world. So we started with DFT colleagues, spoke with people in the agencies and the outside world of transport data. And just to give you a few pictures of our engagement, we spoke with over 400 data users in a variety of settings. Internally at DFT, we mapped data journeys. We found out a lot about how our teams source their data, use their data, what outcomes are expected of them, and what difficulties they face. We gathered a lot of feedback. We found that there is widespread use of data DFT, but that sometimes users report the need for more coordination, support, and especially wider collaboration with external organizations. Internally, there is this strong feeling that we need to invest more in our position of leadership, whatever we do with data, whether it is data sharing, data collaboration, or data publishing. At the same time, externally, we engage with the industry in 2 open workshops. We did one in London and one in Leeds. And we learned there is a lot of demand for leadership from DFT in this, not just the obvious request for funding, but also in terms of guidance, especially from the world of local authorities, the production of guides, and a better engagement and consultation with the outside world. We also learned that data standards are reported as one of the major difficulty, and once again, we'll hear about that later from Matt in the next section. But we also learned that we shouldn't work on data for data's sake, and we should always link data to the outcomes, to the passenger experience, and also provide some way to assess the value of what we do in social and economic terms. With all that in mind, at the end of the discovery, we received a set of recommendations under 5 thematic areas. Now, we are developing also an action list under the following headings, and we plan to publish that by the end of the year, and we'll be presenting that later on. But let me just briefly mention the 5 thematic areas. So first of all, a focus on users' needs and communication. So in this area, we want to make sure that we talk to the outside world, that we keep users informed, we consult whenever appropriate. The second area is around data governance, including better data management and facilitating data sharing. And this is also about the ability, internally DFT, to capture all those new emerging concepts around data, for example, data ethics. Third, a set of actions to support users in the DFT family and the broader transport industry to share, discover, and access data. And once again, we are taking already some action in this context. The roads metadata catalog we are currently procuring is an example of what the action in this area would be like. But to me, a key element is also engaging with the industry and making sure that we speak also to those novel, disruptive transport innovators who hold on to big quantities of data. The fourth area is about standards. So it's about DFT's role in supporting consistent and interoperable data at the highest quality. So we're definitely working on NAPTA. One thing you will hear in the next few weeks is we're trying to improve the way we support NAPTA. We'll be doing some work on discovering what the industry wants to see in that respect. Finally, the fifth area is about promoting a data-driven culture, so working on the skills that we need to do that. And this, of course, both at DFT, where we have definitely a way to intervene directly, but also to support the outside world. We keep receiving requests for support, once again, quite a lot from the world of local government, and we definitely are exploring opportunities for skills exchange and secondments. So to close it all, what we want to see in the data strategy. So it's a set of 4 components. First of all, the vision. So how do we link data exploitation to passenger benefit to make sure that we are definitely fixing the plumbing, but at the same time producing tangible outcomes to passengers and citizens. Secondly, we want to be evidence-based. So we want to build a set of cases, a library of cases of how data has improved transport in the world, and we definitely want to partner with you on making sure that that library of use cases is sensible and current. Third, we want the strategy to define what the role of DFT is. We all know that DFT is sometimes a data producer, sometimes a data user, sometimes a facilitator of data initiatives for others, and we wear many hats, and we want to have a robust and consistent approach to this. And finally, we don't want a wishy-washy data strategy. We want something that is measurable, something that has an impact, and therefore we will be producing a set of actions. Actually, we will be co-producing a set of actions. In a sense, we'll be definitely engaging with you all on this. So before I hand it over to Nikolai for the interactive part of this session, I just wanted to thank publicly our expert panel. We've been engaging with a few transport data experts in the industry to give us an early steer on our work. And I would want to encourage you all to engage with them if you have an opportunity. Your views are definitely welcome. And with that, Nikolai, up to you.
Thank you very much, Giuseppe. My name is Nikolai Petrou. I work for PA Consulting alongside Warwick Goodall, who is the partner in charge of the project that we delivered. For the interactive part of this session, we're going to be using a tool called Slido. Hopefully you might have already downloaded that to your phones or have logged in, but if you could either go to your phone or to the website is www.sly.do. The event code for today is TDI, and if you log in there, you should be able to bring the event up on screen.
Wi-Fi passwords at the back of the room if anyone needs it as well.
Okay. So as Giuseppe mentioned, we've recently completed the discovery phase of the data strategy work. And as part of that, we held some open engagement events. I recognise some of you from those. And that's where we had the opportunity to hear from the transport community about what they wanted as part of the data strategy. We now want to share those findings with you and get your feedback. For those of you who weren't able to join and for those who were, we want to hear what resonates with you and what works in terms of the findings that we've already heard from there. So we'll go through some of those findings and give you your opportunity to share your thoughts on that. So the first question that we would like to explore with you is what value transport data can offer your region and your users. So what we'd like you to do is in the tables, spend 2 or 3 minutes discussing in groups what value you think comes from transport data. And then once you've had that discussion, take the time to just feedback individually what your thoughts are. So if we just take a break for 3 minutes. The event code is TDI.
It's www.sli.do. And then TDI. Does anybody need the Wi-Fi password to read it out? Do you like it? Right, so that the network is 15hat_100, given your network is there. And the password, all small letters, is Hatfields100. Hatfields100. That should get you all connected. So this is a highly sophisticated voting tool for you all to use. Something that I'm sure we used in many auspicious institutions for making big and complex decisions like the Supreme Court and Department of Transport. Right, so amongst yourselves, have a little chat about the value that you think it brings to your region and then put in your thoughts in some slide. Conversation going on, so we need to work out their network. Some people have already added stuff up there here. Yeah. No, it doesn't update automatically. It's slightly annoying, isn't it? Five results. Okay. Good. When do I get the word to load up?
That's what I'm just trying to work out. It'll be on his screen at the back there. I'm just going to have a quick look to see how that's going.
Yeah.
So we can start to see a few results coming through already. For those of you who haven't entered your feedback, if you could just take the time now to put your feedback into Slido so we can capture that. Is that on? Hello. We're starting to see some of the results coming through already. For those of you who are yet to feed in, if you could just take the time now to put your results into Slido so we can capture that feedback. Thank you. This is the
Okay, you have managed to do it, haven't you? Cool. So quite a lot of this. This decision is interesting. Calculating gaps.
Okay, just one more minute.
A couple of people typing, all on the BBC News. Okay, give them a shout and ask them to submit their final answers.
Okay, if you can just submit your final answers now, and then we'll bring them up on the screen. Okay, let's see what you've come up with.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for that. If there's any last-minute ones, click your submit button now. Quite a few things coming up here around making decisions based on data, using it for planning. There was quite a few answers on air quality and outcomes for changing the informing people, information, informed decisions as well. So we'll gather all of that information. Thank you very much, and feed that back in to the strategy thinking as we go along. Nikolai.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Giuseppe mentioned in his presentation there about a number of barriers that exist in terms of the ability to use data. So what we have in our next question, if we could just move on to the next slide. That's me. There we go. Are 8 of the barriers that we identified through the process that we heard most frequently. So we'd like you to take a moment to reflect on these and to think just individually which ones resonate with you. And if you could vote for up to 3 of these barriers, the ones which you think are most important for your areas. So for question 2, if you can choose up to 3 of these barriers in terms of importance.
This one updates quite quickly.
This should be high.
It's number 1, actually. This was still filled in here. Comment on that bit. Bring up my one. Let's assume there's about 50 people because there were 49 responses on the other one.
Okay.
There's about another 10 of you just to go there. About 10 more of you, please. We've got 50.
Is it okay? Sort of asking the room what we can carry?
Yes, it is. 52. I think that's probably about it. Right, thank you very much. We'll switch over and bring up the results for you now on the screen. So, top of the list, barriers that are legal and contractual in their nature. Does anyone want to offer up a particular example that they've had to deal with in this case? Would anyone like to offer one up? Gentleman over there.
So I work for a company called List.
There's a microphone.
Sorry, there you go. I work for a company.
Is that
Hi, hello. Okay. We can hear you. You can hear me anyway. So I work for a company called The List. We have the largest collection of live events data anywhere in the UK, and we're working with Transport for Edinburgh, Transport for Scotland, and a range of other partners at the moment to try and better predict demand for local transport during the Edinburgh Festival. Now that means that we're working with 7 different festivals in terms of their data. At this moment in time, up to 5 or 6 different transport providers. All of those people are highly competitive with each other. So actually, the difficulty's been in terms of data sharing agreements. How do we get people to share commercially sensitive data? Because the understanding that we'll get from understanding everyone's data will create basically far better products for absolutely everyone that's involved. So for us, legal and contractual barriers have been about 6 to 9 months of our work. Commercial sensitivities are absolutely huge around this area, and we see all of these problems. There's also lack of data and technical skills from the transport side, the festival side, and cultural factors within those organisations. In fact, that's just basically a long list of all the difficulties that we're currently facing. But the good thing is everyone's finally realising that actually working together, sharing data together, is going to be the way forward. In order for us to get this to work, we've had to work with the University of Edinburgh, who provide a very secure facility for data. They look after all the NHS data. So actually having a repository which everyone can pour their data into, that's completely secure, has been a big kind of first step for this. But we do see it really as kind of being a future.
Great, thank you very much. That's really helpful. Does anyone else have another example they would like to share? And maybe what they've done to overcome that barrier?
Local authorities have always struggled trying to receive that data that they've supplied, where they end up paying for that data back. So take the point of sharing that data, but there's a commercial angle to that, and I think that's the bit that needs to be investigated, that how can the local authorities who haven't got any more funding left to get that data back without paying for it? So if there is a business model that is working in Edinburgh or Scotland or wherever there is, that someone's harvesting that data is then shared. There's a commercial angle that you can sell that data, but it doesn't cost the local authority. I think that's the sort of stumbling block that we've currently encountered, and we need to, because that's where a lack of data technical skills come in. We haven't got the skills. Yeah. Someone needs to harvest it. Someone needs to literally collect it, harvest it, and then send it back to us, which is useful to specifically for transport purposes.
Thank you very much. And then finally, Jonathan, what could we do about that? How do we overcome that commercial barrier?
Thank you very much. Jonathan Raper, Transport API. On the back of most purchase orders from local authorities are a set of terms and conditions which say we own the intellectual property in what you're about to do for us. The problem is that intellectual property, if you have or own intellectual property, it's like bringing up a child. It will go on for a long time. It will be very expensive, and you need some specific skills to supervise that IPR, and most local authorities are not in a position to do that. So the problems here are about how to transform from that simple term on the back of your purchase order that says we own it into a set of arrangements that allow you to manage that with a partner. And I don't think we have enough templates with which to be able to do that.
Thank you, Jonathan. Right, well, there's clearly a lot of stuff and opportunities to make some changes in this space, but we'll move on to the next question to think about some of the things we might do about it. Right. Nikolai.
Okay, so the next question looks at the themes that Giuseppe mentioned that came out of the discovery process. So there were 5 common themes which were seen across the engagements that we held. And for this one, if you can just take a moment to select the one theme that you consider most important to enable you to deliver outcomes at a local level. Just one theme.
I think the question's different from what we have on the phone.
Oh,
I think you've selected the wrong question.
that's me.
Or you have.
There you go.
There we are, we're back, I think. No? No. Right.
Right question?
Can everybody see that? You might need to refresh your page. Thank you for pointing that out.
Thank you.
I can see you're all getting quicker at this now. We can see it pinging through here. You're all clicking much more quickly. So we're about 2/3 of the way there. Last 4 or 5 of you pretty much there now. Great. Let's switch to the result then. So a clear winner here around this sharing, discoverability and access. How do we find the data sets that are available out there? How do we make sure we can access them? How do we encourage sharing and the behaviours that support that? Strong in second place behind that is around the skills and culture. The gentleman over there was just talking about, you know, the need for skills in local authorities as well. And then third, around the data governance, protection and ethics. Topical, I'm sure, as well. Standards, actually, towards the bottom, does anyone want to sort of comment on standards? A lot of people say standards are important, but is it just not as important as some of the other things? Nick?
Standards are a tremendous barrier to getting people to share data. And I quote,
lovely, a big black stick. I quote Jem Rashbass, who runs the largest cancer database in the world, who works for Public Health England, who went to one of our Agile data meetups. And he said, if you want to never be given any data, you start by saying you must conform to our standards. So he said, just bring it on. I don't care. And he said, then what you do is you send back your count to the people that sent you the rubbish data. They go, well, that's not right. That's not the number we made at all. And then they start to patch their own data. You have to get consent. You have to get buy-in. If it's an artificial thing, if it's up in the air, if it's kind of, you've got to conform to these standards, people go, well, that's going to take 1,000,000 years, so we won't do it.
Great. We're going to come back to standards, of course, in one of the next sessions this morning, so I won't spend time on that. But clearly something around sharing and discoverability is something, and Giuseppe talked about some of the things that DFT is going to try and do and fund projects to help on this in the coming months. Let's go on to the next question. So one of the things that we were looking at as part of the research for the and discovery here around the data strategy is, with transport being a highly devolved thing in the UK, to regions, to local authorities, to many organisations, what role do you really want the DFT to play here? Do you want the DFT to stay out of it? Do you want the DFT to take a major controlling lead? What do you think the DFT could do in its role to most support you to deliver outcomes to the people and regions that you represent? Nikolai, how are people voting for this one?
So for this question, again, it's an individual response, and you can select up to 2 roles for the DFT to perform for you. I don't think staying out of it's one of the options.
Sorry. Right, the poll's open. You should be able to see that now if you refresh your page. This is like clickbait, isn't it? You're pretty quick on the clicking now. What are the top 6 things you could possibly do with data in local authorities and government? Great, I think we're pretty much there. We're a few down on the other ones, but I know that some of our civil servants have opted to stand back from voting in this one. So if we switch to the results, we can see that right at the top, neck and neck, are the culture to support this data sharing across the industry and some money to help make that happen as well. Does anyone want to give a sort of example of their thinking around the culture and what DFT could do to help on that front? Anyone like to volunteer some things you think that DFT might do to intervene and help on the culture side?
I'll give it to that.
Great, thank you very much.
Senator from Coventry. The reason I say that culture of data sharing, the only way the DFT can help is if we have the standard. In what format are we collecting that data? In what format do we want? There are no set standards. Each authority, which is going to be using that data, are collecting data in their own way. So there is no standard. Now, if there is a set standard where the DFT can set, so this is how you'll collect it, this is the format you'll collect it in, then it becomes easier to share. And that's the sort of thing, that's the reason sort of I've gone down, that, yeah, building that culture of sharing that data. At the moment, individual data is held, no one shares it.
Yeah.
But you don't know what you can share because there isn't a set standard.
Does anyone have an example of things they've done that have helped to improve that culture? Does anyone want to volunteer something they've done locally or otherwise that's helped? Gentleman here.
Hello, Paul Darlow from Portsmouth. One of the things that we've done in terms of car park data is share data between the private sector and ourselves. An incentive for them to share that data is so that we can better manage the traffic and experience of people going to that shopping centre, because if the car park's full and we can give them advance warning, they can make alternative arrangements, take the park and ride, which for the shopping centre actually means it's more punters through the door rather than people sitting in a queue waiting for the car park space and having a bad experience. So, you know, there was a bit of resistance initially to share that data from the private sector, but actually because they didn't see the benefit, that's created a culture of which they're now looking to fund some VMS signs for us. So it's sort of started to take off a little bit. So,
Great, thank you. I'll just take one last comment from over here.
Hi, I'm Ashley from Derbyshire County Council. My line manager has set up a Midland Service Improvement Group where we share our transport data and traffic counts across different local authorities. So that's one way that we've been working collaboratively. I think that's definitely a need to improve services.
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe the DFT can do more possible to help those sorts of initiatives. Great, so we're just coming up to the hour, and what we'll do is just close with one final question. Sharing is clearly something there that has been a big theme through many of your answers already this morning. So the final question, Nikolai.
The final question is, what can we do to promote sharing and discovery? And if you could just put some free text into your response. I'll open that up now.
I'll give you a minute or two for consideration around this one, to think about what practical things you think could be done to help make that happen and unlock some of the challenges to sharing, as we've heard here, between public and private sector, over here we've heard between different authorities locally. What could be done to help enable better sharing and discovery of those data sets as well? Okay. Some great things coming here, a few more to come. Do a shout out to a couple as we go. Someone, in the words of Nike, is saying, just do it. There's some good praise for the Transport Data Initiative here as well. A few more still to come, last 10 or so of you. Some stuff around licensing, around standards and templates, about monetizing data, embedding skills in local government, data repositories, as mentioned earlier there in Edinburgh. And joining up things across county and local authority borders. Right, can we switch to the word cloud? There. This was all about data sharing, so you can just see it's right in the middle there. But quite a diversity of things here, from procurement and policy and case studies, incentives and facilitation, quite a number of things here. I can see from the actual responses that you provided quite a lot more really good ideas, which when you strip them down to words, it's slightly harder to read, but we've captured all of that information, and thank you very much for sharing that.
Thank you very much. And Giuseppe, we'll hand back over to you. I'm sure there's nothing else more exciting going on. Let's see.
Just to close it off, what's ahead in the next few months? So I showed this at the beginning. We are now concluding the work on data strategy research. What's ahead? So in October, we're going to be producing a draft, which we'll be submitting internally at DFT. We have been in talks with the minister, but also to the expert panel. The expert panel will meet once again in November, and the plan is to publish or to have something ready for publication by the end of the year. Now, clearly there are other deadlines coming up. I don't know exactly about those, but we'll try and publish something by early next year at latest. And with that, please get in touch if you want to share your views. Thank you.